My name is Asha Myers. I'm an accountant, which means I knew exactly what $145,000 looked like the day my mother decided it belonged to my sister. It was a Tuesday in June. I was at my desk when her name lit up my phone, her voice bright as a parade. We added Daphne to the account, sweetheart, so she can finally get her start. I watched the cursor blink on my screen and said, "Funny, I cashed it all out." There's $8.50 left. The money was never the worst part. The worst part was a single sheet of paper with a doctor's signature on it, from a doctor who never wrote it. What my family did next put my own mother across a table from a fraud investigator, and put me in front of a choice I wouldn't wish on anyone. To make sense of that call, I have to take you back to March. I live alone in a small apartment in German Village with a gray cat named Ledger and a spice rack organized alphabetically. I do taxes for a living. I find the missing penny. It bought me a quiet life, and I earned every inch of it: scholarship, night shifts at a diner, 12 years of showing up. In my family, though, my job title was never accountant. It was the responsible one. I did my parents' taxes free every spring. I co-signed my sister's car loan. When Daphne's gym membership started billing my card, "Temporary," she said. It stayed temporary for 14 months. I paid, I fixed, I smoothed, and I called it love. Nobody thanks the sky for raining. That March I was 34, steady, the daughter with the spreadsheet heart. I thought my place in the family was solid. I was about to learn there were two kinds of children in my family, and only one kind gets protected. The account started with my grandmother. Nana June took $5,000 from my grandfather's life insurance in 2000 and opened a custodial account in my name, my mother listed as custodian. "This is for the one who counts pennies," Nana told me, hand on my shoulder like a clothespin. "One day they'll all count on you. Make sure you still have some left." When I turned 21, it transferred to me alone around $11,000. I fed it like a garden. 500 a month, then 800. 12 years of boring index funds through every market panic. By spring it sat at $145,000. My retirement. My proof that a diner girl could build something. In my mother's mouth, it was always the family fund. Once I corrected her, "It's my retirement account, Mom." She laughed the way you laugh at a child who says something adorable and wrong. "Family doesn't keep score," she said. I hadn't done the math on that sentence yet. My sister Daphne is 29 and has been about to find her path for a decade. The Candle Studio, the life coaching certificate, the resin art, the podcast that never aired. Each chapter began with a glowing family dinner and ended with a quiet transfer of somebody else's money. She lives in my parents' basement, in a room my dad drywalled the month she was 30 days from eviction. Daphne isn't cruel. She's what happens when nobody ever lets a person hit the ground. That spring, the new dream was a wellness studio. Sage green logo, eucalyptus over the D. Nobody mentioned money, which in my family is how you know money is the entire subject. Then a Wednesday text. "Sunday dinner, 6:00, family business to discuss." My mother deploys linen the way generals deploy artillery. The good tablecloth meant the ask was big. Over dessert, she folded her hands. "Daphne's studio needs 60,000 to open. Honey, your investment account is just sitting there." She even knew the balance, down to the number I'd listed on our family asset worksheet years earlier. I set down my fork. "That account is my retirement, Mom. It started with Nana's money. The answer is no." Silence you could balance a spoon on. My mother smiled, soft, disappointed, endlessly patient. "Asha. Family doesn't keep score." I heard the fine print inside it for the first time. At the door she squeezed my hand. "We'll figure something out." She wasn't asking anymore. The weeks after went quiet, which should have been my first clue. Instead, my mother got suddenly curious about my health, my sleep, my stress, whether I still saw my doctor. Then Daphne texted asking for copies of everyone's documents from our family paperwork day years back. "Mom wants to update the file." I reconcile records for a living. Sudden concern from a woman who calls stress a rich person's hobby. Questions about my doctor. A request for documents, individually small, together a discrepancy. That night, I pulled my file box down and found the copy of a document I'd signed in 2021 and mostly forgot. A springing power of attorney, dormant unless a doctor certified me incapacitated. My agent, Lorraine Myers, my mother, I drove to my dad's garage. What is Mom planning? He wiped his hands on a red rag, buying time. Your mother handles the paperwork, Asha. Always has. As I backed out, he called after me, louder than he ever talks. Whatever happens. Your mother loves you girls the same. People don't say, whatever happens, unless something is scheduled to happen. The call came on a Tuesday night, a pocket dial from my mother's kitchen. Pans clattering, water running, then her voice, casual as a grocery list. Once we're on the account, the studio deposit goes out first. Daphne, smaller. What if she finds out? My mother. By then it's done, Daph. She'll be angry, then she'll get over it. She always does. I played it twice. Not rage, the cold of a ledger finally balancing after years of forced errors. My best friend Marisol is an estate's attorney. I played her the voicemail over coffee. This is a warning, not a case, she said. Intending to get on an account isn't a crime. Then she asked the question that rearranged my spring. After Nana's stroke, what exactly did you sign? A springing power of attorney. My mother held the original, in a filing cabinet in her hallway. That Thursday, I signed a revocation in front of a notary, sent certified copies to the family attorney and to Whitfield Investments, my grandmother's original brokerage. I named Marisol as my new agent, changed every password, locked my mail. Airtight, except Marisol warned me the revocation would sit in a processing queue for days, maybe weeks. If someone walked in first with the old POA and a doctor's letter, the firm would freeze everything while they sorted the conflict. Months, maybe. There was exactly one way to make my account not worth stealing. Empty it. I spent the weekend at my kitchen table building a spreadsheet, which positions to sell, what the tax hit would cost, a real 5-figure number I typed, accepted next to. I opened a new account across town, in my name alone, maximum security, a fresh email that existed for money and nothing else. Tuesday night, cursor over confirm, I thought of Nana's voice, make sure you still have some left, and clicked. Order received. 6 days of trades settling. Whitfield's fraud desk called on the second batch to verify. Yes, I said. This is Asha. I authorize it. Words that tasted like freedom after weeks of learning, my mother was quietly building a case that I couldn't speak for myself. On the final transfer, I didn't zero the account. I typed a figure that left exactly $8.50 behind, a number only 2 people alive would understand. That number goes back to when I was 14, babysitting all July to save $8.50 for a movie with friends, counted so many times the envelope went soft. The Friday of the movie, it was empty. Daphne 9 had spent it on doll accessories. I cried. My mother knelt down, gathered thief and victim into one hug, and delivered the verdict that ran my life for 20 years. Sisters share, Asha. Family doesn't keep score. 20 years later, I left the family exactly what they'd left me. It was the only thing in that vault they were ever owed. May was the strangest month, because I was the only one who knew the play had already ended. My mother turned negotiating suite, lunches, compliments, casseroles. Daphne posted Sage Green, big things coming graphics. Then, drying dishes at my dad's birthday dinner, my mother asked, light as lint, whether I could send a photocopy of my license and insurance card for the family file. In case of emergencies, I told her I'd handle my own file. A flicker crossed her face and vanished. Driving home, I finally admitted the plan had a deadline. I didn't witness the first week of June. I reconstructed it later from a fraud file that would eventually carry my name as the reporting party. A package arrived at Whitfield. The real, notarized 2021 power of attorney, and behind it, a letter on Hartwell Family Medicine letterhead, stating that the patient, Asha Rose Myers, suffered a major depressive episode with cognitive impairment, presented as high-functioning, but was unable to manage her finances. And that activation of the durable power of attorney was medically appropriate. Signed with a doctor's name, dated the same week my mother was asking for my driver's license. The margins were right. The clinical language ran smooth. My mother spent 19 years behind a medical office front desk, printing referral letters before she retired. I'm not saying anything. I'm just showing you the ledger. An automated Whitfield email arrived first, documents under review. Then, mid-morning at my desk, my mother's call, bright and triumphant. "Sweetheart, it's done. We added Daphne. The deposit for the studio goes out Friday." I said it quietly. "Funny, I cashed it all out weeks ago. There's $8.50 left." The silence had furniture in it. Then, not an apology, "How could you do this to your sister?" 48 hours later, Karen Voss from Whitfield's Fraud Prevention called, flat and procedural. When a POA package claims incapacity, a compliance specialist verifies with the physician. Hartwell's office had no record of any letter. The signature didn't match. The doctor himself was extremely concerned. The package moved to the fraud unit that afternoon. Voss asked if I recognized the submitting parties. I looked out at ordinary life going by and said, "Yes." My mother submitted it. My sister was the added party. She emailed me the scan. Standing at my counter, I read my own name, Asha Rose Myers, inside a diagnosis I didn't have. The date snagged me. The same week I'd brought my father's birthday cake and dried dishes, while my mother asked about my sleep, my stress, my doctor. She hadn't been worrying about me. She'd been drafting me. My identity handed over from 34 years of memory, not stolen from a mailbox. My family reached for the only tool left, the story. Aunts calling with syrupy concern. A cousin asking if it was true I'd drained my savings in a manic spiral. The family group chat filled with an old washed-out photo of me captioned, "Please keep our girl in your prayers." The forgery had become its own alibi. Not one person ever said the word sorry. My father texted, "Call me, just you." Home Depot parking lot, lumber carts for cover. "The paper from the doctor," he said. "There's a line, witness." That's my handwriting. He'd believed it was protection paperwork, signed where my mother pointed. Then he asked what he'd really driven out to ask, "Don't make it big, Asha. Your mother's not sleeping. This could really hurt her." I finally saw his place on the org chart of our family, not on my mother's side, on the side of quiet. Quiet is a side. My Aunt Deb, a retired nurse, called not to lobby but to explain. In 1984, at 19, my mother signed over every paycheck to keep her family afloat while her own nursing school dream waited. Nobody forced her, it was just understood. When she cried about it, my grandmother told her, "Lorraine, family doesn't keep score." Nobody ever paid her back. My mother wasn't collecting money from me. She was collecting justice for a girl in 1984 that no one ever repaid. And I was the only one at the table earning enough to cover a 40-year-old debt. Understanding explains everything and excuses nothing. 11 days later, a detective's card sat in my mailbox, an appointment to give a victim statement. That same week, my mother appeared at my door holding chicken soup like a white flag, entering my apartment for the first time in 5 years. Cataloging my curtains and radiators the way she does before a big ask. She talked about summers at Lake Erie, then set an envelope on my table, not an apology, a job application for Daphne, filled out and ready to send. "I just need you to do one thing," she said. "Tell the detective it was all a misunderstanding, that I'd agreed the family could step in, that the letter was a mix-up with the doctor's office. One sentence, baby, and this all goes away." Then, softer, "Don't trade your whole family for a piece of paper." I asked her the only question I had left. "Mom, are you sorry?" She blinked and reached for the sentence that had never once failed her. "Everything I have ever done, I did for this family. You always land upright, honey." Daphne needed a chance. "Family doesn't," she started, and I finished it with her in unison, 34 years of harmony. "Keep score." Then I said the rest alone. You're right, Mom. That's why you never noticed I was the only one paying. Something crossed her face I'd never seen before, a cashier realizing, one instant too late, that the drawer has been counted. She called me cold, calculated, no daughter of hers. I set her cornflower blue cup gently in the sink and held the door open. Drive safe, Mom. She left the soup. Thursday morning, I sat with the detective and walked through the timeline the way I'd walk a client through a shoebox of receipts. The dinner, the voicemail, the revocation, the liquidation. The $8.50. She slid the letter across the table one more time and asked if anything stood out. I told her the last true thing I had. Halfway down, the letter calls the patient Asha Ray. My middle name is Rose. My mother's childhood best friend was named Ray, a name she'd always wanted for one of us, overruled by my father. She's the only person alive who makes that exact slip. I signed the statement, every page, my whole name at the end, the first signature in my life that cost me something and belonged entirely to me. Here's the honest accounting 6 months later. Nobody went to prison. I never wanted that. My mother took a pretrial diversion program, restitution, a class, a clean record if she stays out of trouble. She tells relatives it was a misunderstanding I blew up, and most of them find it easier to believe her, because believing her costs nothing and believing me costs Christmas. Doctor. Hartwell's practice changed its verification procedures. Daphne took that same front desk job our mother had used as a prop. She's apparently good at it. My father is still in the garage with the Bronco, rebuilding the one engine that never talks back. Aunt Deb sends me photos of her tomatoes and never asks me to come home, which is its own kind of love. My money sits under one name, mine with Marisol as the only person who can ever speak for me, and only if a licensed stranger says I truly can't. In November, Whitfield mailed me a final check for $8.50. I didn't cash it. It's framed on my wall beside a photo of Nana June, and on Tuesday nights it hangs behind me while I teach a free class at the library. Budgeting, beneficiaries. What a power of attorney really signs away, to a room of women who, sooner or later, stay after to tell me about a signature they once gave someone because they loved them. I used to believe love meant being the one who always pays. Here's what I know now. In every family that claims it doesn't keep score, somebody is quietly keeping it for you. Keep your own books. Sign nothing out of guilt. And remember, $8.50 of truth is worth more than $145,000 of keeping the peace.